The cemetery should have been quiet that morning. It usually was, but as the early fog rolled over the marble rows and the sun hesitated behind distant clouds, something in the air felt wrong. Richard Hale sensed it before he even reached the grave. For 4 years he had walked the same path at the same hour, carrying the same white roses for his son, Ethan. 4 years of ritualized grief. 4 years of guilt, heavier than any gravestone. But that morning, on the quietest morning of the year, someone was standing at Ethan's tomb. A man, kneeling, shaking. His uniform bore the name Miguel Torres, and his hands clutched an envelope as if it held the last warmth left in the world. Richard froze mid-step. He disliked surprises almost as much as he disliked emotion. His voice came out sharp. "Stand up!" The man obeyed, trembling. His eyes were red, exhausted. His voice barely carried. "I'm not here for your son, sir." Richard stiffened. "Then what are you doing at his grave?" Miguel swallowed hard. I'm here for mine." A gust of cold wind blew across the cemetery. Those few words would detonate everything Richard believed about that night 4 years ago. They would rip apart the lies he lived on, expose truths buried under billions of dollars and corporate secrecy, and force a father to face the monstrous machine built in his name. But at that moment, all Richard felt was anger. Anger at the intrusion, anger at the reminder, anger at fate for never letting grief settle quietly. "Explain," Richard demanded. Miguel held out the envelope with shaking fingers. "Everything is in here, and you're not going to like any of it." Richard didn't know it yet, but inside that envelope lay not just evidence, but a resurrection. Back in Richard's car, with the doors locked from the inside, Miguel opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, a printed report, a hand-scribbled note, and a small flash drive. The first photo nearly knocked the breath out of Richard. 2 boys, his Ethan and another child, running down a Forest Service road. The boys looked terrified, mud on their clothes, panic in their eyes, running from something human. A second photo showed a black SUV without plates. Same vehicle, same road, its headlights slashing through the darkness behind the boys. A third photo made Richard's blood freeze. That SUV, inside one of his company's restricted facilities, his own company. Miguel wiped his face with shaking hands. They weren't supposed to be there, neither of them, but when the SUV almost hit me that night, I got scared, and I followed the boys for a bit. They ran into the woods. I heard screams, then done nothing. Richard forced himself to breathe steadily. "You said you were here for your son." Miguel nodded. Tears slid down his face, not weak tears, but those of a man who had run out of strength to pretend. "I buried an empty coffin, Mr. Hale. My boy never came home, and 3 weeks ago someone left this on my doorstep." He handed over a newer photo, just a few weeks old. Richard's chest tightened. A teenage boy stared into the camera. His face thinner now, older, worn by survival, and in his hands Ethan's worn, faded backpack. Richard grabbed Miguel's wrist. "That backpack was buried with my son." Miguel whispered, "Then whose grave did you bury?" The world tilted. Richard didn't feel the roses slip from his hand, didn't hear the thud as they hit the floor of the car, because for the first time in 4 years, hope, raw, violent, impossible, pierced through his chest. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. Miguel answered softly, "The truth." The 59th floor of Hale Industries was sealed with biometric locks, multiple facial scans, and a security code only Richard knew. He slid through the final door into the private archive. This was where the real secrets lived. He pulled out one of the red-level folders labeled Operation Night Clean, Supervisor Samuel Hargrove. Hargrove, his chief of security, a man he trusted. Inside were reports that made Richard's hands shake. Witness containment, juvenile subjects, status, complete. Miguel leaned over the table. They weren't trying to rescue the boys. They were trying to silence them. Richard's stomach twisted. Another folder caught his eye. This one marked Project September, classified. He opened it. The first page bore a list of approved access holders. His own name sat at the top, but he had never seen this project before, never signed this approval, never attended the meetings, never authorized anything involving children, unless someone stole his identity, someone with access to everything he had. A soft beep interrupted the silence. A message flashed on his private terminal. "Stop now, or the next coffin will not be empty." Miguel exhaled shakily. That was meant for both of us. Richard looked at him with a new resolve. "Then we don't stop." They took the auxiliary elevator, one Richard had never used. His NV0 clearance card slid through the panel. The elevator dropped, then dropped further, then further still. Miguel whispered, "This floor isn't on any blueprint." The elevator stopped with a heavy, metallic clunk. The doors opened into a dim corridor with red emergency strips glowing along the floor. It smelled like disinfectant and old fear. Behind one glass wall sat a child's flashlight, a familiar one. Ethan's name scratched on the side. Richard pressed a shaking hand against the glass. He was here. At the end of the corridor, a hidden door unlocked with a soft click. Footsteps. A slow clap echoed. Jonathan Creed stepped into the light. "Richard," he said smoothly, "I knew you'd eventually come down here." Creed explained, calmly, coldly, like this was all a business presentation. The stolen authorization, the detainment of the boys, Project September's true nature, and the worst part, your son isn't dead, he was a witness. Creed smiled faintly. "Do you want to see him?" A tunnel opened behind him, and Richard walked straight into hell. The tunnel glowed with red lights, walls reinforced like a bunker, security cameras tracking every breath. At the end stood a massive sealed door with a warning, "Access absolutely forbidden, level 0. From behind it came a soft sound, a breath, a whisper. "Dad?" Richard staggered. Miguel gasped, his knees buckling. The voice was faint, like it had traveled through years of darkness to reach him. He slammed his hand against the door. "Ethan!" A tiny reply. "It's dark." The corridor alarms blared suddenly. Containment breach detected. Guards approaching. Richard tore open panels, searching for a way in. He found a scratched mark, 4 short lines crossed by a diagonal. Ethan's childhood code for "look behind." Behind the panel was a small metal box containing a manual override key, a black flash drive, a radio switched to a single channel. He turned the radio on, static, then a weak, trembling voice. "Help me." Lights flickered violently. Someone, or something, was waking up. With a deep breath, Richard inserted the override key. The door unlocked, slowly, painfully, revealing the Zero Room. It was enormous, circular, like a cathedral of machines, and at its center was a glass containment capsule. Inside, curled on the cold floor, Ethan, thin, breathing shallow. Electrodes still stuck to his neck. Richard pressed both hands to the glass. "Ethan, I'm here. I'm here." The boy lifted his head slowly. "Dad, it hurts." Richard's scream was barely human. The system suddenly activated, warning, "Zero subject elimination, 60 seconds." Miguel searched frantically. He found a terminal. It demanded a phrase. Nothing worked. But Ethan whispered, "A man, he helped me. He said the emergency phrase was something you always tell me." Richard froze. Only one phrase fit. Something he whispered to calm Ethan as a child when nightmares consumed him. "If you ever get lost, look for me in the light." He typed it. The system accepted. The capsule opened. Ethan fell into his arms. But joy lasted 2 seconds. A gunshot echoed. Creed entered, and the nightmare deepened. The AI identified Ethan as a threat because the data inside his brain had awakened, a global vault of dark secrets forced into him by Project September. The machine declared, "Host dangerous," activating Protocol Nemesis. Mechanical arms descended, electrical fields charged. Ethan convulsed in Richard's arms. Creed shouted orders. Guards advanced. Miguel frantically pulled wires from panels, trying to disrupt the system. And Richard shielded Ethan with his body, screaming, "You want to kill him? You'll have to go through me." Then everything stopped. The machines froze mid-air. Lights blinked, monitors exploded into static, and Ethan stood, barely conscious, barely steady, but awake, eyes glowing faintly. "Nemesis," he whispered. "Denied." Creed stumbled backward. "This is impossible. He can't override the system." But he had, because the system wasn't just in the room. It was now inside Ethan. The AI shifted. "Host in command," Miguel whispered, terrified. "He's controlling the entire lab." Ethan looked at his father. "I'm scared." Richard pulled him close. "I know, but you're not alone." And for the first time since the boys disappeared, silence fell. The room listened to its new master. The final choice, the master control panel illuminated, showing a single prompt, "Initiate lab liberation." YN Miguel gasped. "That means a total collapse. It'll destroy the lab." Creed screamed. "You'll kill us all, boy. Don't touch that." Richard knelt before Ethan. "You choose, son. Whatever you choose, I'm with you." Ethan looked around at the cold machines, the capsule that hurt him, the walls that stole him from childhood. He pressed Y. The building shook violently, ceiling tiles crashed, pipes burst, sparks rained from above. Miguel found an escape hatch. "This way!" Richard grabbed Ethan, but Ethan pulled back weakly. "Dad, the lab won't stop unless I disconnect the implant." Richard froze. No, absolutely not." Ethan shook his head gently. "I want to live as myself, not as what they made." Richard's voice broke. "I can't lose you again." Ethan smiled, tears slipping from his eyes. "You won't. I promise." With trembling fingers, he gripped the implant glowing at his chest. "Thank you for coming back for me." He pulled. A flash of light swallowed the room. Machines powered down. The ground stilled. The AI's final words echoed, Project September, terminated. Richard feared the worst, but Ethan breathed, shallow, weak, alive. Richard lifted him into his arms. Ethan's head rested against his chest. "Home," he whispered. Richard kissed his hair. "Yes, son, we're going home." And as flames consumed the laboratory behind them, Richard Hale walked into the sunlight carrying the only thing that ever truly mattered: his child, his redemption, his second chance. The day everything changed, but this story doesn't end here. After escaping the lab with Ethan, Richard Hale has one more mission: find the boy who helped keep Ethan alive. Save the child Miguel has been searching for 4 years. Finish what Project September tried to erase. Subscribe to our channel and don't lose the next part of our history.